All right, welcome back to the program. Like I said earlier, that my guests will be joining me. We'll be talking about the worsening insecurity situation in the country. Charles Achodo, who is a peace and development expert, the Africa team lead, UNDP Bureau for Crisis Prevention and Recovery, retired, is with me. He's also advisor to the government on development and security issues. Welcome, Mr. Achodo, and good to see you.
Nice to see you. Thank you very much.
Let's just get started. I don't know where to start because, you know, the insecurity problem in the country is so pervading. Like I said at the beginning of the program, I get so furious at the situation keeps increasing, and it seems that there's nothing that is being done, or things that are being done are not, you can't equate it to the results we should expect.
Okay.
Killings all over the country, deadly attacks, kidnappings in schools, universities, Boko Haram attacks, 50 villages deserted. I guess, I don't know if you saw the clips from Niger State governor, and that was an alarm. That was like an SOS call.
Exactly.
That Niger State is just two hours away from Abuja. And in fact, when he said it, I said, but Boko Haram had invaded Abuja before. What would be more audacious than going to a police, you know, headquarters and doing that? Killings in Anambra, Imo State, Rivers, the hosting of Boko Haram flag, and all of that. How complex and how alarming is this problem?
Well, Nancy, we have every reason to be concerned. We have every reason to worry. If you put a map of Nigeria around and begin to map out clusters, flashpoints of insecurity, regardless of the type, what you notice is that this country is losing close to about 75% of its land mass to insecurity.
75%, that's
yes,
a lot.
That's a lot. Now, you will be amazed when you map it and look at the whole thing from the north to the south, various forms, okay? From Boko Haram to kidnapping, to issues you mentioned, abduction, to some of the elements that have been occurring. So what we're having is a complex mix of insecurity, patterns of insecurity that are spreading across the country, driven by forces that are differential in nature and very alien to the kind of things this country used to know in the past. Before, all we knew was armed robbery, okay? Then from armed robbery, things metamorphosed, and we kept on watching. What we are facing now is a complex mix of insecurity that is very alien and challenging the inherent or installed or in-house capability to respond to those challenges. Our security systems, our security institutions never evolved to respond to these sort of challenges. They never anticipated for this kind of insecurity and challenges. They never also tried to morph in a way or deploy in a way that makes them or enhances their operational effectiveness when it comes to response to some of these issues. And you realize that what we're facing didn't start, it's not something that started today. It's a cumulative, gradual process of complexity we faced over time. It was linear, but it got to a point where it became exponential. Because it's becoming exponential, linear traits can be managed over time as you adjust your institution. But if you keep quiet and you leave your institutions, you didn't build them, you didn't reform them, you didn't restructure them and position them for effectiveness, then you end up being faced managing complex, exponential security challenges. And as things stand now, our country is not prepared, and neither is it equipped to manage exponential, complex security challenges we're facing.
Okay, let me take you up on some of the things which you have said. I had to write it down, so I didn't want
That's fine.
to get it out of my head quickly. First of all, in your opening statement, you did talk about that insecurity has consumed or has been 75% of the landmass of those almost all the states now, just a few are better.
That's it.
75%. Isn't that a threat? 75%, that 75% now belongs to who?
That's the question. Now, when I use the word insecurity, I didn't want to say Boko Haram has 75% of the country. That would be that's not the issue. The point I'm saying is that if you look at the entire spectrum of the complex security challenges we have, you can, let's put it this way, maybe about 25% of the landmass of this country is where you can say
It's
can
safe.
confidently walk without being abducted, without being executed, without being assassinated, without being killed by anybody, without threat to your life and to your property. Very few. Can you imagine even recently that armed robbers were robbing estates in Abuja?
Yes.
Okay, fine. You build estates, you put security structures, you put everything around. Still, armed robbers move in there and rob those estates. You can't jog and move along Abuja roads. I'm talking example, that there are very few places you'll be moving and you're very comfortable that nothing will happen to you. You can't drive from here to Kaduna and you're very comfortable and sure that nothing will happen. You can't drive from here to Imo State or to any of the southern states and you're sure that nothing will happen to you. So road movement is totally out. Now, when you have that, add the kilometers of roads, add the kilometers of the inherent threats in each of those areas, you can now begin to estimate and look at the number of states in those areas. You can now begin to ask yourself question, what is the percentage that we have in this country in terms of landmass that you can say you are safe?
So out of that 25%, which states or which areas are safe in Nigeria?
I wouldn't really want to say this state is safe or that state is safe. It's probably parchment of areas you can mention that are safe for you in terms of what I have mentioned. There is nowhere you can go, for instance, in Abuja now, if you're looking at Abuja, that you can say for sure you're not looking behind you to make sure that, okay, there is nobody to attack you or there is not going to be any form of threat to your life. Everybody is concerned. People don't go by road anymore. Okay, people don't go by road anymore. Mostly every time you drive, most of the passengers, most of the vehicles that drive from the north to the east, you hear of armed robbery incidences. You hear of one form of abduction or the other. You hear of one form of assassination or the other. Most people don't. And the whole thing is, the civilian population is not spared. The security agencies themselves are not spared. Within this 1 week alone, you're looking at us losing close to about 300 to 350 personnel, what do you call it, civilians and security agencies. The army, the police, and everybody are being attacked and killed. Now, you ask yourself question, what country are we really building? This country is on the verge of unraveling. Let's be honest about it. Unless we're able to reorganize our security architecture as rapidly as possible, because we lost time over the years. We lost time. We weren't able to have specialized agencies that can respond to some of these issues.
What do you mean by specialized when we have a police force?
No, you have a police force, but the police force was not organized in a way that it anticipated this sort of complex security challenges.
So why not organize the police
That's
force
what
better?
we're saying. They should be organized, that's what I said. They should be organized as quickly as possible. You see, again, the challenge I have is when you talk of some reform processes, ideas come. For instance, for the past, starting from Obasanjo's regime till now, we've had series of reforms, reports that were produced. Some of them headed by ex-police officers, former police IGs, DIGs, and all those. And none of these were implemented. And when you run through some of them, you realize that most of the recommendations they made, there are common thread running through them. Decentralize the policing system so that you bring policing back to the community. Your recruitment of police forces should start from the community, not from top, so that communities identify who should police them. When people talk of the NSAS issue, what the message there was, Nigerians were saying, we are not happy with the way we are currently being policed. That's the whole issue. It wasn't just NSAS. Therefore, that put a challenge on the government to say, okay, let's reform the entire police system. But when you put reform of an institution on the institution itself to reform, that becomes a problem. An external body should drive this reform process in the police system and come up and say, this is the benchmarks for reform, these are the timelines for reform, these are the resources we need to get the reform done, these are the outcomes we're expecting, and get all these things timelined and begin to implement them. But if you leave it within the police force to implement, it will end up the way each and every recommendations that have been made in the past ended up. And that's where the challenge is. What does it take to have police decentralized? What does it take to get community policing done? How long does it take to do that? 20 years? We've been saying this for quite a long time. I don't know who is policing me, but I need to know who is policing me. And the person that is policing me ought to know me. And that's what the idea of community policing is all about. It's kind of hurts when you begin to look at this country and the way things are going, and you begin to ask yourself question, is it that we don't have the knowledge? No, the knowledge is there. But the problem is when it comes to implementation, Nigerians will disappoint each other so badly. And that's why I said, when you have proposals for reforms of an institution made, don't put that burden on that institution to do that reform. Set up a project management team and ask them to drive the reform of that institution. And you see change happen in the police system.
Now, let's try and dissect the patterns of insecurity we're seeing.
Yeah.
If you take a look at what the United States said, the advisory that they put out, they've advised their citizens and dual citizens to stay clear of many states in Nigeria. And they categorize the various crimes.
Yes.
Banditry, Boko Haram, crime, assault, rape, carjacking, kidnapping, and
militancy,
all of that.
cultism.
Yes, militancy and all of that. Yeah. So let's try and dissect these patterns of insecurity in the country. Are they all diseases that are caused by the same symptoms? Are they all diseases that are caused by, perhaps different viruses?
No. They are caused by different issues. There are different issues driving each and every element of them. Okay. There are also where they are convoluted, where they share certain boundaries. Now, if you look at issues of, say, militancy and cultism, you can see a relationship, especially when you are working in the Niger Delta area. You can see. If you look at the issues that has to do with artisanal mining and the challenges it kind of poses within the context of unregulated mining in that area and the need to control territories to do mining, you are looking at a potential area of a volatile area of insecurity in those areas. Take, for instance, in Sierra Leone, it was alluvial diamond. And they used to call them Sansan boys. It was these Sansan boys that formed the bedrock of the RUF, that held the country down for more than 15 years.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, good. You can see similar thing happening where we have alluvial mining, artisanal mining. And we need to respond as quickly as possible to some of these kind of challenges. Now, you look at the issues of criminal abduction. I have never seen, when you look at some of the adoptions, 300. Have you imagined the logistics? Let's be honest with ourselves. The logistics of organizing 300 people, herding them into trucks. Is it one truck? Is it one bus? Is it what? And carrying them away. And then it is when they have finished and gone that we get a call that 300 people have been abducted. Okay? Something is wrong somewhere. I worked in Liberia. I worked in Sierra Leone. I worked in Mozambique. I worked in most of the most complex security environments by rebels, by all sorts of things. I can tell you, rebels don't, like Boko Haram, they don't abduct people in that large quantity unless they want to use them for combat purposes. Okay? In that case, there is a proactive recruitment of child soldiers women, children, girls, and other things, either for combat purposes or to support in cooking food or to use them as sex slave. But they don't go up to that massive number because they are a mobile group. They move as quickly as possible. So they can't move in 300 people in. How do you do that? That's number one. So, and in most of those countries, what you will see, it doesn't reach up to 10% of the total number of the group. But the kind of abduction we're having, 300 here, 400 here, 500,
50,
you
yes.
begin to wonder. These are organized criminal elements in those communities that are doing this. And government has to begin to look at it.
Which governments now are you talking about? Because
both at the state level.
Because the states seemingly
state
are
level,
helpless right now.
Both at
if
the
you see what is happening in Imo State, see what just happened in Niger State, the
again,
governor.
Nancy,
Yes.
we all have, first let me make this statement. We all have a collective responsibility when it comes to that. The degree might vary, okay? You can supply intelligence. You might know who is doing what. You might know where they are going. There are mobile phones to call. You don't call when the incident has already happened and the kids are taken 3 hours away from the location. There are things that ought to be done. Police recruitment, police deployment, how you deploy your assets in the context of the emerging challenges are also very, very important. If, for instance, schools are becoming targets, what does it take our police people to deploy police people in some of these schools in this area? Rather than having them standing in dark places of the street, flashing torchlights at night, collecting money along look, we know all these issues. The police has to be remunerated. That's another dimension to some of these issues. Their service conditions are very poor. It's about one of the poorest we have all over the world. And you come in a situation where you have police people deployed, say, at the border. Let's take all the security agencies deployed at their border. We have porous borders, for instance. And ask yourself question. They take care of themselves. They buy their diesel. They buy their fuel. They buy everything out of their pocket to do the job. Yet we make budget in the police budget. We provide these things in police budget for them to do their job.
Which
they're not doing that.
not enough.
Either it's not enough,
the budget
or
is
they're
not
not giving.
enough.
The budget is not enough. But then when you look at the budget again, that's also another thing. When you look at our budget over years, okay, what you notice is that substantial amount of it goes into recurrent. Now, if it goes into recurrent, that tells you a larger percentage of recurrent expenditure is salary.
Salary.
Fine. If it is salaries, that means that we have quite a large number of police. But if you look at it, we have less than 200 police persons per 100,000.
Okay.
To 100,000. Okay. Now, in other countries, they're having about 300, 400 per 100,000. But we're having only less than 200, about 200 or so. Now, that creates in itself a problem. Now, you look at the structure, you find out that a considerable amount of that money in the budget does not go into capital expenditure. What does that tell you again? It tells you that the police is not properly equipped, the security agencies are not properly equipped, the arms and everything, the logistics, the vehicle that they need to become mobile is not there. I don't know what your experience has been. I had an experience, very shocking experience, after leaving this country for 30 years. I had an issue. I walked to the police to complain about something. You know what they asked me? We don't have paper to write.
Yeah.
I have to buy the paper to write my statement.
So it was even that bad. Because
I'm telling you it was that bad.
The one I know is that, we not get fuel to follow you to
That's the second one. After I finished writing making my statement, they said they don't have fuel to take me to the place. Now, I have to buy the fuel. It is not the experience, I thought it was just a unique experience. But by the time I start talking to other Nigerians and start studying these patterns, you realize that it's all over. It's all over the entire security system. They call them for exams. They pay for their hotel accommodations. They pay for their transport. They pay for everything. So they are highly unfunded, highly demotivated. And how do you expect those kind of people to be the ones to serve you and protect you in that context?
Have the leaders accepted the insecurity plaguing the nation? Why I ask that question is because if you see pockets of what has happened in the country, few pockets of what have happened, some of our leaders or politicians will say, it's coming from the opposition. you know. So do you think that they've accepted the worsening insecurity in the country? That's the A part. The B part of the question is that, do you think that this government still have the capacity to handle this unsettling challenge? Because whenever we have an incident like this, you see the president or his press people come out and issue a statement, say the president is not happy with this, he promises to fight this. The next day, it happens. The president... So how much should we believe the president again moving forward on this insecurity matter?
Let me handle it this way. It will be very, very ungenerous to say that you are the man who heads the country is very comfortable with what is happening in the government he's leading. I can't be comfortable leading a nation that is very unstable. And I don't expect that the president is comfortable about it. Now, the issue we have is, one thing is utterance, making a statement. Another thing is backing it up with the capability to make sure that it happens. Thirdly, it is also holding people accountable. If I have an IG for police, for instance, I would say by so-and-so time to so-and-so time, if the total number of abduction happening in this country is 10, I want it reduced in the next 6 months or 7 months by what? 5. I want it reduced by 50%. You set targets by which you hold your appointees accountable. Now, this is what is missing. We don't have targets. They are not held accountable to any targets, and they go to work and they go back home. Do
you also give them what to fulfill their targets with?
That's another thing.
Because as a leader, you provide
what is required. If you employ me now and give me a target and I accept that target, I will tell you that this is what I need to achieve that target. Make those things available, then I will deliver. If you don't, I will step out. I don't need to accept a job for which I don't have the resources to deliver. I don't. And that's where the challenge is. We not only recruit and hire people, we appoint people, the resources are not there, targets are not set, the individuals sit down and just earn their salaries at the end of every month. And that doesn't work. Nobody is comfortable. I don't expect anybody to be comfortable with the state of insecurity in this country.
What do you expect the president to do now? Because just like I said earlier, if his words and his promises still come out and mean and come out with so much weight, a lot of Nigerians now will say, President Buhari is always giving us promises. They even ask President Buhari to even speak to us at times. He doesn't speak. He speaks to us when he deems fit. But this problem of insecurity is pervading everywhere. Nobody is safe. I said it earlier, we are supposed to close our eyes in the night. You can't even close your eyes in the night anymore. You are awake, your eyes are open 24/7. The thing now is that what should President Buhari do? What should this administration do? A lot of people have called for like a security summit. Some people have called, okay, bring everybody together, let us talk and see. I don't want to enter the restructuring debate, I'm just talking objectively. What should we do at this time to solve this? Because like you said earlier, it's from linear, it's become exponential, and we've seen it cumulative, gathering that capacity over the years. And the terrorists that are perpetrating this, or the bandits, they are terrorists. I don't know what is bandits. Thieves, armed robbers, ritualists, rapists. You see that they come up now with so much audacity, because if something happens here today, the next day, it comes with so much dexterity. Yeah. As if, let's just be doing, nobody's calling us into, or nobody's tracking us. So the audacity of crime continues to increase every day.
Yeah. Okay, you see the issue, again, bad behavior has a tendency of being mimicked.
Yeah.
Okay?
So don't reward bad behavior.
Don't reward bad behavior in a way that others don't mimic it. If you're paying ransom, then be rest assured that somebody in the East can actually do the same thing where this kind of abduction has never happened before.
And kidnapping is a lucrative business now.
It's a lucrative business now. Yeah. And then ask you to pay ransom. So that's number one. Number two, I have mentioned it before, there is a need to look at our security architecture and begin to build them as quickly as possible. and reform them and reposition them and retool them in a way that they can respond to contemporary security challenges we are facing. You don't, where necessary, you can allow the institutions themselves to do that. But in most cases, reform and changes are not done by the people inside there.
With all this reform,
So
what is the timeline? Because there are some short, mid, to
there are
long
medium-term things they can do. That's what I'm saying. There are medium terms they can do. Set up a project management team to drive each of these components. And they will break down the things that can be done today, tomorrow, and begin to do them. You will see results immediately. But if you leave it to the institutions and its bureaucracy, it keeps on going round.
So are you talking about like hiring consultants and all of that?
It's not only, even there are ex-police officers who they've retired, they have nothing to do. Okay, there are ex-security experts that have retired, they have nothing to do. You can get them and mandate them to drive the reform process in each of those institutions and see what is going to happen. Secondly, we need to work on depoliticizing issues of security. Insecurity cannot be politicized.
So it's not for the opposition to take that and feel that they can score cheap points by saying that this administration, there is no security and all of that.
It's not, because if you look at it, the weakening of the police system did not start with this administration. The only thing that I am uncomfortable is that the administration didn't respond quickly. Either they underestimated the challenges that they were going to confront, or
perhaps they were not prepared in the first place.
They were not prepared enough, yeah. They were not prepared enough to deal with it. Again, initially, I assumed, I will admit that, I assumed that the president coming from a military background will be able to respond to this thing, more effectively than a civilian person. But then, what you noticed is, again, after a reflection, I said, okay, probably the military he used to know when he was there, it's not what he inherited now. The NPC he used to know, for instance, before, it's not what he has. So institutions have grown and changed and morphed. And within the context of ill health, within the context of other things, he might not be able to basically understand
but is that not why you should always, as a leader,
the buck stops
at your table. If you're not able to do what you're supposed to do, or even as the president, he shouldn't just oversee. That's why he has ministers, he has advisors. So you should be able to get people that can get you to where your vision as the leader.
Credible people, competent people who can help you drive this process. And that's where we're having also one of the areas we're having challenges. Appointments are done in this country in a way that politics drives it more, okay? When in the actual sense it should be competence and performance. It should be demonstrated experience. What do you know? What have you done before you are placed there? I have seen certain people move in there. They begin to learn on the job.
And those kind of positions you don't learn on the job.
You don't learn on the job. There are positions you need to hit the road running because you know what to do. And these are some of the issues when you look at the context of some of the security challenges we mentioned and discussed here. They are evolving. They are complex. They are becoming exponential. You need people that have the experience to hit the road running.
Okay, we just have like a minute to go or two. Two questions. What's the scale of IDP crisis that we have on our hands? Because when I was reflecting on this program today, my mind or my brain took me to the area we're not talking about is the displaced people, the displaced person, the crisis. Just was it yesterday that we also saw gunmen invading an IDP camp.
An IDP camp.
That is now where people went for succor, invaded them.
Invaded those camps.
So, by herdsmen. So how do we address that situation? How do we address the situation of herders, farmers crisis? We remember what happened in Benue. Over close to 100 people dying in this same country, and we all slept well. Wow. I don't know how the president sleeps, really. I know everybody around him that works in this administration. Then the second question is, will this situation get worse or better? And if it will be worse, what's going to make it worse that we're seeing now that can make us infer that this situation will get worse? Or what are we seeing now that will make it better?
Okay. I'm usually very optimistic But in the context of your last question, I would rather be cautiously pessimistic about it.
I asked you a scientific question.
Yes.
I had to put on my science
I know-
hat to
I
ask
know,
that.
I know. You see what is happening is that it can, and it has a tendency to get worse. And I have my reasons for saying so. Remember I said it's becoming exponential. And when a process is becoming exponential, you must have the institutional capacity to respond. It takes a little bit of while to build those institutions. And that's where the problem is. And that's why I was saying, in order to make it faster, make sure if you are putting the reforms and reposition the institutions for effectiveness, for better performance, get external people to drive that process for you. Secondly, on the issues of the IDP you mentioned, again, this is also where we always get it wrong. You don't have IDP camps in areas where you've not described or prescribed to be safe. You must make sure that the area is safe. You must define parameters by which you declare that area safe, and it includes a whole lot of things. One, the restorations of capacity for local administration must be in there. The capacity for justice system must be there. The capacity for law enforcement must be there, meaning that you deploy a police and all those things there. The capacity to hold the ground in terms of the military presence has to be there before you put a camp and call it IDP camp. But here, we build IDP camps without taking into consideration.
Do we even build secondary schools or schools?
We establish them. Let me say, we establish IDP camps without those basic parameters being put in place. And therefore, the place is open, and the rebels or the Boko Haram groups can actually move in and do whatever thing they want to do.
Mr. Charles, I think we'll leave it at that because the issue of insecurity is quite huge and is extensive. Yes, it's a huge topic, it's an extensive topic, and it has, segments, because each segment of, or each pattern of insecurity has got to be broken down and a solution profiled
Definitely
to it. And Nigerians also will have a part to play in all of that. But at this point, it seems Nigerians are helpless, and like we always say, the last person we run to, or the last being we run to, is the supreme being, which is God, to save us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very
Mr.
much.
Achodo.
Thank you.
I've been speaking with Mr. Charles Achodo, who is a peace and development expert. We've been talking about insecurity, the worsening insecurity in the country, and definitely security is a bedrock for any advancement of an economy.